Hello and welcome back to What If a Billionaire Invested in Brazil. This is part 3 and it's going to be the final part of this experiment. Next time we're going to move on to something else, so make sure you drop a like on the video to show your support for Brazil and of course subscribe for more experiments just like this coming up very soon. Speaking of those experiments, I've chosen 4 countries that we could possibly do next time, and as this goes live, there's a link in the description to Twitter. Now if you go on that link to Twitter, you can then vote in a poll to decide which country we're going to be doing next. So that's going to be running for 24 hours, that poll. So you've got 24 hours from this video coming out, so Monday, 6 o'clock UK time. So that's when that's the cut-off for the poll, and that's when we'll be announcing who we're going to be doing next. You've got a choice of India, Ireland, Australia and Greece. They are the 4 countries we're going to be possibly doing next time. Very interesting. Lots of comments suggesting those countries. So get voting on that on Twitter. And also, while you're there, follow me as well, because that's always nice to do as well. Right then, because this is the last episode, we've got to make some significant changes, I think, to try and boost the reputation of teams, to make sure that we can try and get some European giants coming over to Brazil to play their football. So, the best and most reputable league in the world right now is the English Premier Division. If we look at this, its current reputation is 178. The Spanish First Division, La Liga, is also 178, but the Premier League is apparently slightly more reputable. So this is the most one. So what we've done is we've gone into the Brazilian editing competition details, and we've made that 178 there, as well, you can see there. So that's as reputable as La Liga or the English Premier League. So that's quite good. We've also gone into every single team as well, gone to edit the club details and up their reputation by 1,000. So the top Brazilian teams now, a worldwide reputation with, for example, Cruzeiro, 8,631. That is high. That's as high as a lot of Premier League sides, and it's higher than most of them, if we're being honest there. So really now we should be seeing European players coming to Brazil if they are going to come at all. That's what we're going to see here. This really is now the time for it to happen. If it doesn't happen, then we can just assume that even if we put as much money and increase reputation as much as possible, European players just are not interested in playing in Brazil, which is unfortunate, really. So with all that being said then, reputation's increased of teams and the league, and of course they've had all their money and things like that. A lot of them do have quite a lot of money left over, so fingers crossed, in the next couple of years, we're going to leave this running now for a while now. I don't know how many years we're going to get in the future, so we're going to come back in a matter of seconds for you. For me, it'll be, it's going to be going all day, so it'll be quite long for me, but for you, with the power of editing, a matter of seconds, we're going to see exactly what's happened and see if we finally can get results in this experiment. Right, so we've gone 14 years into the future now, and a lot has happened in that time. There's been a lot of different winners, and there's been a bit of a dynasty starting to form in the Brazilian National First Division. First of all, though, we'll check the reputation. Has the reputation of the league changed? We left it on 178, and it's gone down to 158. Which is pretty poor, actually, considering how much we boosted it by to be as good as the English Premier League and the Spanish First Division. So it's gone all the way back to where it even started. I think that was where it was in the first episode. So that's not a great sign to start off with. Really not a great sign. In that case, then, let's have a look at the past winners over the past 14 years. So I think we left it on 2024. And since then, Cruzeiro won it twice before Palmeiras won it in 2027. ATP and Cruzeiro then exchanging the title for the next 8 years or so, Cruzeiro winning most of those as well. That's what I mean by the dynasty that start to form, Cruzeiro being the best team in Brazil by a long way. ATP also having a good go, obviously winning a few leagues there, before Botafogo won it last season, the 2023 season, doing pretty well for themselves. They've had a couple of second place finishes and third place finishes, so they're probably comfortably the third best team at the moment in Brazil behind Cruzeiro and ATP. But it's a far cry from what it used to be, where perhaps a team would win it twice in a row, but there was a lot of different teams winning it all the time and things like that. It's now sort of changed back to just winning, Cruzeiro winning it all the time, things like that. So that's interesting for them to see, at least. They've been at the top of the game for quite a long time now, and as you can see, their captain is from the Czech Republic. So perhaps now we're starting to see some of these European players coming in. They're regens now, obviously, at this point in the game. We're past the likes of Messi now and Ronaldo, but he's on a contract until 2040. Their captain, and actually looks pretty nice, to be fair, 16 leadership, which is pretty nice, and 20 determination with a driven personality. That is very nice to see as well. He came from Sparta Prague then for 3.4 million to Grêmio before moving to Cruzeiro for 8 million there. So that's nice to see, actually, that some European players now are starting to come through. He's obviously very, very good to be the captain, makes a lot of appearances for the Czech Republic as well. So I think this is starting to suggest that this experiment has been a success in terms of European players coming over to Brazil. We'll have a quick look at some of these transfers as well then. We'll just see if this really is starting to work. The top transfers then, are they European players coming into Brazil? And in the 2025 season, which is the first year of this part of the experiment, it doesn't seem to look like that at all. There's a few players leaving to go to Europe. Arthur going to Barcelona, Gabriel Jesus going to Man United after he came to SCP, and obviously he's a Brazilian guy, but he's a very, very good player. Obviously decided he wanted to go back to SCP, went to Man United, but then went back to Palmeiras once again before going to Bordeaux again. So he's had quite a bounce across the Atlantic, has Gabriel Jesus, but that's interesting to see as well. We said that these young players wanted to come back to Brazil because the youth facilities there were so good and the training facilities were so good and things like that. And of course, it was their native country. So that's kind of been the hidden thing that's happened in this series. Here, again, I can't see many of the Europeans coming over and things like that. A lot of the European side just not giving up their players. William Jr. from West Brom to Chapecoense there, but William Jr. obviously a Brazilian player there. Once again, as the seasons go through, we're just not seeing any of these European teams selling their youngsters, their European youngsters specifically, to Brazilian teams. But a lot of Brazilian players are coming back from Europe and things like that. Obviously not quite in the top transfers because they're still quite young. But if we scroll down, from Dinamo there going back and things like that. So that's quite interesting to see. I think just some of these younger players, I mean, he's obviously, he must be Croatian because he's from Dinamo, yeah, but now plays at Barcelona, valued at a very high amount of money there. So he would have been at one, he must be now, if he's just gone for 78 million, he's one of the best players in the world. And he was made in Brazil, really, after being at Dinamo for a little while. Played a lot of football in Brazil before moving to Arsenal. This has got to suggest something to me that, a lot of these youngsters are perhaps wanting to come to Brazil because of such great training facilities. Again, in the 2033 season there, Brino coming from Middlesbrough to Cruzeiro. That's the only transfer in the top spending ones from Europe to Brazil. It's not been quite what I expected. I expected to see a lot more transfers coming in from Europe to Brazil. I know that there are limits on the amount of foreign players Brazilians can have, and I didn't want to change that, obviously. I wanted to try and keep it as organic as possible, thinking that they will just reserve those 5 spaces for the best European talents and things like that. And it's not quite happened, unfortunately. Who's this guy? Marcos Rodrigo is a Brazilian guy, so it's not too much of an issue there. But he came from Bordeaux to ATP and then back to Bordeaux 2 seasons later, only 22 games later. So they made a huge loss on him there, which is a bit odd. But, we're starting to see some of these players come back. And that's the season we just had. And again, looking down here, one guy coming from Olympiacos to Palmeiras. But other than that, nothing too much. So I think what we can take is, despite giving Brazil all the money in the world and giving them, boosting their reputation infinitely, basically, they just can't do it. They just cannot attract the best European players. They can attract young Brazilian players back. I think that's the surprise of this. We've seen a lot of young Brazilians come back because it's their native country, and then we've got the top training facilities which can make them a better player to then move on back to Europe and things like that. So I think that's what we've seen in this experiment, that Brazil just being used as a training ground, really, for these younger players, young Brazilian players specifically. We had the occasional young player coming in, like that Czech Republic guy who's captain of Cruzeiro, for example, but it's not been to the extent that I thought it was going to be. And that's why we do these experiments, to find out things like this. Sometimes it doesn't quite work out the way you think it's going to work out, but it's still interesting nonetheless to find out what does happen. Right, the Club World Championships then. Let's see how Brazilian nations have done in this the past few years. We'll look at the past winners, and if we look from 25 onwards when Monaco won it. So 26, Chelsea winning it, and then Monaco again, and ATP win it in 28, and that's the only time a South American side has won it, apart from 2033 when ATP won it again. So that's very interesting to see, I suppose. ATP being the dominant side, obviously. We've seen a few runners-up, quite a lot actually, runners-up South American sides. In fact, most years being the runners-up. The 2031 season, though, very impressive. America winning it. They're obviously from Mexico, so that's the North American outfit, against the Chinese outfit from Asia, obviously. So obviously that was a bit of a weird final. They wouldn't expect that, North America versus Asia in the final, with Real Madrid of all teams finishing third, so they couldn't get past one of these sides, obviously. And I guess Real Madrid would have beaten a South American side in the semi-finals or the third place playoff. So that's interesting as well, that year particularly. That's a bit of an odd one, but obviously Real Madrid being dominant again in the mid-2030s. So again, we've not seen what we expected to see. We sort of thought that, coupled with a lot of youth players and European players coming to Brazil, we thought that would happen. We then thought that South American sides would dominate the Club World Championship, but because they've not got European players in and things like that, they've just not dominated this. So it's been Europe dominating this for years and years and years. They've had the odd win every now and again. We've seen 4 teams win it from South America, which is good. It's progress, I suppose, in a way, but it's not been quite the extent we thought it was going to be. Also, a quick look as well at the Copa Libertadores. Obviously, we're very interested in this. And since we started, only one team who's not been from Brazil have won it. San Lorenzo won it in 2029 from Argentina. They're the only non-Brazilian side to have won it throughout its entire experiment, apart from River actually in the first season. That's also... So 2 teams outside of Brazil have won it. Other than that, it's been crazy. Just Brazil everywhere, everywhere, everywhere. I do want to have a look actually. I want to see if there was ever a quarter-final where it was just all Brazilian teams. If we go to the 26th season, that's the first one. There we go. We don't have to look any further than that. The 2026 season, all 8 quarter-finalists were Brazilian. So that kind of shows the money we've put in has absolutely dominated South American football with Brazil. Have they done it? They've done it a few times, to be fair, I'd imagine. San Lorenzo, the only Argentinian side there in 2027. 7 Brazilian teams there. 5 there. That's a poor season for Brazil. 6 there. 7 there. A full 8 there once again in the 2032 season. 6 of them there in the 2033. 2034, another full 8 Brazilian sides. And then a Colombian side sneaking into it in 2025. Atletico Nacional, who have won it before as well. Argentina as well, Racing Club. Doing pretty well for themselves there. But yeah, essentially Brazilian domination in the Copa Libertadores, which is kind of what we expected. Right then, so that is the experiment there. It's not quite worked out the way we thought it was going to work out, but it's been very interesting nonetheless to see what did happen in Brazil over this time. I want to say thank you very much for watching this part of the Billionaire experiment. Of course, remember to go onto Twitter now and vote for your country that you want to see next on my channel. That'll be out on Wednesday, I believe. Yeah, because this comes out on a Sunday. It's about on Wednesday, the next episode. So make sure you get voting in that in the next 24 hours or so to make sure you get your vote counted. If you enjoyed today's video and enjoyed this series as a whole, make sure you drop a like on the video, subscribe to the channel if you're new around here, and I'll see you next time for more Billionaire action.